We'll check if anybody's got any questions about their safe system assessment, because they're no doubt well into the swing of it. I've got a couple of sort of comments. I've had a few people just clarifying things, and I think it's good to sort of share that with others. So they've done that via email or organised a quick meeting with one of our experienced safe system assessors just to clarify things. So I remind everybody that that is an option for you to get some further coaching. Otherwise, just put the head down and keep plowing through. So feel free to either pop something in the chat as a question that you're looking for clarification on, or pop your hand up if you want to ask the question verbally. We're more than happy for that to happen. And we've got a bit of time allocated to this sort of discussion in this session, or a fair bit of time. So if we finish early, we'll give you some time back, but we're happy to chat. It looks like we might have a hand up there.
Yeah, we've got Miles.
Hello, Miles.
Hello, good morning.
Yes. How are you?
I'm very well, and yourself?
Good. Which part of New Zealand are you in?
Wellington.
Very good. And that's the place where there was the first motorway in New Zealand, by the way.
Oh, nice. My question was, yesterday I spent 2.5 hours at this intersection just observing traffic. And I did witness 2 near misses, actually, funnily enough. How do I integrate that into my scoring if that is actually an option?
That's a very good question. So well done on spending so long out there. That's not required as part of the course. So just if anybody thinks, oh my God, I've got to spend 2.5 hours out there. But I think from that experience, as you're saying, you've got a richer understanding of the way that intersection operates, and really looking at it through that lens, you've probably been able to see a few things, and you've witnessed those near misses. Now, you don't need to explicitly mention those in the assessment, but if you wanted to, when you are putting the dot points around that specific issue that has presented itself as a near miss, you could put in brackets in that and saw near misses on site. So if you say it's I don't know the circumstances behind it, maybe you could, well, anyway, if it was say right turn into side road over multiple lanes of traffic, and you've got that as increases the likelihood of crash, and you could say, and noted as quite a few or a number of near misses during the site visit. So really, it's good. It's good information, and it helps you understand that, but it doesn't get its own dot point as such in a safe system assessment.
Okay. And were these roundabouts, are they actual real, thoughts of this is what's going to happen at this intersection, or was someone just come along and just kind of made it up, thought, oh, this is pretty cool, be really good for the assessment?
Most of them are fabricated. It's because of, so we used to always use real designs when we would do safe system assessment training in person in New Zealand. So we would work with the local council and Wakatahi to find sites that have designs, and we do those. But because now, well, through the COVID period, we went to the online format, and we didn't want people to have to travel, and we just needed to find things or give people things close to their homes or their offices. So designers would find something local and design something up that would be, somewhat have some merit to it, but without knowledge of the area, the traffic, the different strategic plans and the like. So there's always a degree of head scratching from people who know the area. But some people may have got a real live one if we manage to find one or knew of one. So but most likely it was fabricated for the purposes of training.
Okay, because I look at it and I go, it makes 120% sense to put a roundabout in this intersection. I'm
Okay.
going, wow. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'll feed that back to I'll feed that back to Nathan, who just dives into sites via Street View and picks a spot and says, oh, well, maybe we could put a roundabout there, or
Mhm.
you know, change this priority or do that. So there you go.
Yeah. No, cool. Awesome. All right.
Well, thanks,
Thank you.
Miles. Appreciate
Thank
you asking your question there. It's helpful for everybody.
Oh, all good. Oh, yeah. So the one, I do have one follow up.
Yeah.
It's got because it's got two streets on it, and you've got two different amounts of traffic volume.
Yeah.
Is that so? It's, for example, 8,200 plus 5,900 is the total amount going through the intersection.
Yeah, that's right. For the intersection, you add the
Yep.
two, but for the runoff road, head on, and usually other, you take the higher volume road and you just use that figure. So
Okay.
your intersection score will be a 4, and your there Kathy's brought up the Safe System Assessment scoring fact sheet on exposure at intersections. So that one's, yeah, just clarifying that adding of the two. And yeah, but the like in this situation, you would take the 9,000 as the runoff road and head on, even though that 1,000 has the you know, there's still runoff road risk down there as well. But the way the assessment methodology is sort of set up, it's for you know, usually it's for a specific corridor or route, and then these are entry points into it. So if you wanted to look at the head-on and runoff road risk down that road with 1,000, you would probably do a separate assessment for that, because the so the reason for that is, like, say that 1,000 vehicles a day leg of the road has like power poles close to the edge line and has high speed, and then the 9,000 has this continuous barrier systems and the like. The risk is going, if you have the two as one, you water down that risk because of the safety, or vice versa, you enhance it. So what I'm saying is that you would go to score your severity, which you would have to say is high because of those power poles, and you'd say the volume is high because of the 9,000 or 10,000 that you've added the two, and you'd say the likelihood is high because that's taken volume out of it, the equation. So you'd end up with potentially a 64, even though we've got continuous barrier systems covering the bulk of the traffic, and it's a really, you know, safe environment. There is some unsafe areas in a lower volume road. So you want to separate it out so it's its own entity, if that makes sense.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Miles. And I think we might have another hand up even. This is great.
Yeah, we've got Alan as well. Hello, Alan.
I'll drop Miles away. But there you go, as easy as that to ask your question. So hopefully Alan will find the unmute button there. Waving.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Where are you calling in from?
Yeah, from Christchurch.
Ah, very nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a question. My assigned task is about an intersection, and I went over the area, but and I realized that there are schools, a couple of high schools, both girls and men's high school, and then a church in another street or road, and there are hospitals. So to what extent will I analyze the intersection? Will I be focused only on the intersection, or from the intersection, how many meters for each road will I analyze? There are risks in each corner, 4 corners. So I want to understand. Yeah, that's right. So I would like to know to what extent will I be able to analyze the risks? Will it cover the schools nearby?
Okay, that's a really important question around defining the scope of your assessment and the limits of how far do you go, because you're right, you could get to the school there and then you could walk a little bit further down the road and see some other risks, and you keep walking down the road and you keep going, and there's just continue, and then you've done a safe system assessment of all of Christchurch. We got to limit this somewhere, and the nature of a lot of safe system assessing is around understanding the safety benefits of the upgrades and understanding whether we can do more with those upgrades.
Yeah.
So you really your scope and limits of your assessment are usually dictated by the client in terms of what their project scope is. Now, you can push them a little bit and give some more encouragement on them, considering other aspects. And certainly in one like this, I would be looking at the pedestrians and cyclists coming from the school and how they're going to cross that road. So how are they going to cross Woodham Road there? Because we know they're going to want to do that, and we've created this signalised facility, which is helpful. But will they be able to get there, or will they even bother to go there? Or are they just going to continue to cross mid-block? And if so, should we be thinking about facilities mid-block? So, in that sense, they are somewhat influenced by this intersection, and so I don't want to dismiss that. Am I going to continue going off, the plan here and out into areas that haven't been looked at? Probably not. And I'll sort of limit it probably to what I can see there. The predominant thing here is to think about that intersection and say, well, what exposure have we got here? What are we getting in terms of reduction of the chance of a crash by signalising it? And then the severity of the crash. Are we going to be influencing that? And then what can we do to enhance that through different changes to this plan? That little side road over to the, is it west? It must be, west. I'd include that just due to its, I wouldn't really be including it from a volume perspective, but more thinking about how is it influencing likelihood of crashes and potentially severity of crashes, but more probably likelihood of crashes associated with queuing and vehicles coming out and the like. So it would play a more, I suppose, minor role in that, but certainly my focus would be on that intersection. So I've sort of haven't directly answered it, but you make a judgment call based on that. What I'm particularly happy with is that you are thinking about land use. And you're thinking about, what is that going to generate? How's that going to alter our exposure likelihood and severity?
Correct.
The presence of the school and the schools and the church facility and the like, to me, will certainly influence likelihood of crashes due to the fact that we know school kids are more likely to be involved in crashes due to, they haven't developed their cognitive pathways and as much, so that they'll take more risk without sort of understanding the implications of that, and they're more darty, and they are hidden behind vehicles and the like, and they sort of skylark and play around and fall onto roads and things like that. So that then can get factored into your likelihood of crashes, and thus you might be thinking more features to if slow vehicles down in the area, provide school crossing facilities, ensuring we've got connection of of separated facilities from the school gates to the appropriate crossing points. You may even, in a full safe system assessment, drift into some work with the school to talk about safe routes to school and how to use use these facilities and encourage people to use active transport modes in these certain routes to enhance safety.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for your
Alan.
thinking around around that wider context. That's excellent.
We've got lots of long-time listeners, first-time callers here, Ken. There'll be more people putting their hands up, but I do have a question that's come through in the chat, and Sophie's asking, what if you've been given a stretch of road to assess that has 3 give-way T intersections along it? How do you choose the number of vehicles for the intersection column? And you'd be surprised to hear I've brought it up here. So this one is, as Ken mentioned earlier, some of the designs are ours and then some are real.
Rightio. Okay, let's have a look at this. So so you're not going to add up each of the side roads and the main road volume. Well, for this one, it looks, so what do we got there? Whitehead Crescent, where's that one? There. Okay, I mean, due to the fact that we have given you the specific volume of only one of those intersections, it sort of guides you to say that that is the intersection we would be thinking you would assess for that stretch. Because we haven't given you volumes for the others. However, if you wanted to, in a real safe system assessment, so that's an option for you. Just look at that intersection, look at the length of the road for all the other crashes. The other intersections may influence your chance of runoff road and the like, but there is definitely intersection crash possibility at these other roads. So in a real safe system assessment, you've got 2 ways to try to deal with it. Either one, you do essentially 3 safe system assessments, which is that you cordon off those roads and they get their own matrix. But because these roads have likely similar volumes, or they sit in the same band in terms of the categorization, you can simply use that band for exposure and then address your likelihood and severity of crashes based on the characteristics of the 3 intersections. So you might pick the one there with the very odd angle coming in, and you would put what is it, Chimeria Road? You might put that angle influences the likelihood of intersection crashes, and then you would just specify for that road in particular. Okay, so the score would go up, but as long as people are reading the text in that, they know where that's particularly coming from. It's kind of like if you have the whole length of this road, you're going to have 1 or 2 spots that are going to influence the likelihood and severity of runoff road crash, aren't you? So there'll be particular power poles in places, or trees, or particular curves or the like, but you still give that runoff road score to the whole route. But in the notes, you'll be pointing out where that is, and then in your recommendations, you'll be talking about addressing that. So you might be talking about then squaring up that intersection, or blocking off the exit, making it entry only, and circulating them around another way, or the like. So there are your options to that. As I say, for what we generally talk about is sort of intersections of like volumes can generally be lumped together, as long as the form of them is not majorly different. Like if I had signals and then roundabout, I wouldn't bulk them into one assessment. They're just too different. But these are all giveaway controlled. And yes, they've got different likelihood characteristics based on their things like sight distances, that skewed angle, their interaction with the through roads and where bus stops are and dynamic visual obstructions and those sort of things. But yeah, overall, they have somewhat similar risk characteristics in terms of at least exposure and severity.
Thank you, Ken. Elzabi? Not sure. Elzab?
If we pronounce that correctly?
It's Elzabi. So
Elzabi.
Elizabeth, yeah, just Elzabi. So my mom was creative, so
yeah. No, I got an extra N on my name for some reason. So
yeah.
also have creative parents. Where are you calling in from?
From the cold, frozen Queenstown. That's where I'm calling from.
Okay.
So it's quite cold, yeah, but it's good. A lot to get used to. Get my question that I have, and I know you did mention it in one of the modules. So the intersection I have, it's a kind of a follow-up question from Ellen's. There's a little market that happens every Saturday, and it's quite big. To what extent do we include that in our safety audit? Because I know there's a school close by, so that's a definite look into pedestrian crossings and things like that. But do we accommodate for once off, and it only happens in summertime, so it's not over winter time, because no one wants to be outdoors except for on the ski fields. But yeah, we don't want to do markets in winter season. So how do we consider that in the safety audit?
Yeah, that's a it's a really important one. I'm glad you brought it up again, because I do want to address this. We see this quite a bit out there in our assessments, is some sort of seasonal change or some sort of isolated events like markets, or it's the parade route, or it's a bike race route, or something like this that you need to factor in the management of your road network. But in the intersection upgrades like this, what I do is do the assessment on the common everyday use of the intersection. So that would be obviously the vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, school children, as you say, if they're in the area, or even things that are sort of occurring frequently and the like. But the market, because it's sort of a very irregular event, there's two ways to deal with it. And one way is again to just create a safe system assessment matrix for market time. Okay,
that's good.
And you label it that way, and the risks will be markedly different. All right, and you'll see and what you would do with that is understand their current operations of your traffic management during market times, if there is any. Often, you'll see roads blocked off, or you'll see temporary speed zones in place, or other things. Now, that can then very, very much alter it. So you'd almost be assessing it under that condition to give you an idea of how things happen during that time. The alternate way, and probably the one you'll use for this assignment at least, is to ignore it essentially for the scoring and the matrix. Put commentary in your recommendations around the interaction during market time. In a full safe system assessment, there are those qualitative questions I took you through at the end, and that's where, for this particular circumstance, you would probably have a lot of information around that one question. In the qualitative questions, we said, are there special activities, on-road events, and those sort of things. So you would actually really get into that, and you say, well, okay, this is what happens, this is what changes, this is how it happens. If they're going to upgrade that intersection, we need to factor that in. Have we thought about, this massive increase in turning volume or these big waves of pedestrians coming through? And you'd make lots of commentary around that, which would then potentially feed into recommendations.
Yes.
So it becomes less rigid in terms of the assessment, exposure, likelihood, severity on all the different crash paths. And it becomes more than this supplement to that to say, that's all fine for the bulk of time, but at this particular time, we've got some changes happening.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Well done, though. And again, another example of where we're thinking beyond just a typical design review. I mean, some design reviews would, get into that in a wider sense, but really a lot of design reviews are just, is that curve radius meeting standard, and have we got adequate drainage? And these are important things, don't get me wrong. But then it's kind of like, that's done. Then how this road is used and all of those human characteristics, well, that's the problem with the user. And we want to, change that. And we want to get in there early and start to think, well, hang on, how are they using it? What can we do? Are there enhancements we can make during this I suppose, unique time for an intersection like that, where it's actually going to get some fundamental infrastructure changes, and we may not see many changes over the next 30 to 50 years.
Yes. Especially, thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.
Yes, well, enjoy a warm cup of hot chocolate or something, and
just stay alive. Stay alive.
Good. Okay. Well, wow, that's been great, Kathy, hasn't it? We've had it's going to be very helpful, all of these discussions for everybody. So I really appreciate that. And as we tick through today's session, if you do think of other things, feel free to jot them in the chat, or again, pop your hand up, as wonderful volunteers just did there. And happy to chat, and lovely to have Kathy there to dig those designs out.
Excellent. Thank you, Ken.
Is there anything else I need to deal with at this stage?
No, I think we're good to, if you've got some slides to run through. And yeah, as Ken said, if you've got questions, ask away. If you're thinking it, chances are other people are thinking it as well. You can ask a question anonymously in the Q&A. I'm sorry, I have to say that word very slowly. It's
anonymously.
Like rural is another word I can't say.
Yeah, I can't say that either. Yeah.
Anywho.
Okay. All right. So you're all in the depths of doing safe system assessments, and I'm very confident with this group from seeing your assignments and the discussions we've had and the interaction and your quiz results as well, that you have a really good grasp of safe system fundamentals and also how to think about exposure, likelihood, and severity, how to score things, and how to then come up with recommendations that are going to enhance our road network's alignment with safe system principles and protect all road users. So I'm really quite confident with this. You've got to do a little bit of work to actually prove that you are in that space and the like. But this one is around just what's the process of safe system assessments overall, and what are some of the benefits of this safe system assessment methodology, and then I'll just finish off the day after our break with just a little jump around road, I suppose road stereotypes or different road environments to talk about what we could recommend to get better alignment with safe system principles. So I want to talk to you about the benefits of safe system assessments, and this leads into why Waka Kotahi has combined road safety audits and safe system assessments due to their proven benefit. But as we said, I think in one of the earlier modules, there's nothing stopping you doing a safe system assessment as an isolated activity. And that can be very beneficial. And I've got some evaluation data to sort of talk to on that. I'll talk about the process of the safe system assessment. I'll also sort of touch on how the safe system audit process in New Zealand is now working with that combination of road safety audit and safe system assessment. And we'll talk about the difference between audits and assessments, but also that now interaction. Okay. Now, this little chart looks like a fairly simple thing. I'll probably talk about it for 10 minutes because it is sort of one of the key outputs from an evaluation of 35 major projects that were subject to safe system assessments. And so there was an independent evaluation done by a guy called Blair Turner, who is a New Zealander, actually, and he works now for the World Bank. He was at ARB before. What was done? So there were 35 safe system assessments done on these big projects, and I'm talking big projects like town bypasses, major new duplications of 10 kilometers of massive arterial road network, new freeways and alterations. So these are pretty big projects. And what he did was take a crash prediction model, 20-year crash prediction model. So he used ANRAM, which is the Australian National Risk Assessment Model, and coupled it with some traffic modelling, some predictions on pedestrian, cyclists, motorcyclists, and something else that was included in that. And a bit more of an in-depth look at crash history. So anyway, what was done was to say, okay, 20 years time, what is the death and serious injury predictions? So KSI or FSI, fatal serious injury or killed and seriously injured. And you can see there that for no project, if none of these upgrades were to take place, okay, we would see 7,900 people seriously injured in these areas, in these stretches of road. For the town bypass, for example, so if the town was not bypassed, what would we expect to see? Now, obviously, some assumptions had to be made around the operation of that over the next 20 years. If it was still to go through the town, what would they potentially upgrade? What would they do? So there is always a bit of estimation with these sorts of things. But 344 fatalities throughout these areas. So each of these safe system assessments was done on a design. And now you've got a design that you're working on, you're looking at. So just that same way that you've been given a design, the safe system assessment team was given a design. The designs varied in these 35 safe system assessments from fairly conceptual, like most of you have got, to a sort of functional level design. But anyway, each of those designs was then analysed and said, well, what will that do? And that, if they build exactly what they said, it would go down to 6,700 serious injuries, 286 fatalities. So then the safe system assessment was undertaken, and just as you're doing, it recommended changes. Said, well, we think you could do this, this. They're primary things, and then here's a series of supporting things. And if those were all taken on, or if there were sort of conflicting ones, like, there were two primary things that could be done, they would take the one that gave the better crash reduction. That brought things down to 3,890 serious injuries and 167 fatalities over the next 20 years associated with these areas. Then the project team got these recommendations and they said, okay, well, yeah, we can do these 3, but we can't do these other ones for, one reason or another. It could be they don't think that politically that's acceptable, community won't accept it, or maybe they said, well, we cannot get that extra budget, or there's a cultural heritage site here that stops us from doing that, or there's all sorts of reasons in a practical sense why some of these things can't happen. The Safe System Assessment team has the luxury of being able to put things on the table and recommend things without having done the absolute full investigation of that. And that's, that's not our role, is to do absolute verification of practicality. It is to put it on the table and push for better outcomes. And so that then, brought the crashes back up to 5,298 serious injuries and about 227 fatalities. So this tells me a lot. And first of all, it says to me, okay, the designs that are coming in off the big design houses predominantly, churning out these massive road designs, following all the standards we've got and the guidelines, they improve safety, right? We can't say they don't improve safety. Occasionally we find ones that actually don't, but most of the time they're improving things. Okay, but what we know that we can do so much better with what we know of now and what is generally acceptable, because remember, the safe system assessors, or the safe system auditors, as they're going to be called in New Zealand going forward, they are trying to make fairly practical recommendations. Yes, they are trying to push for safety and better safe system alignment, safe system outcome, but there's got to be some sort of reasonableness to it. Like we saw there, somebody was talking about their urban roundabout option. Well, to be recommending grade separation in an urban environment is not really something a safe system assessor would likely be doing in those environments, because it's just so far beyond what would be practical within the within the confines of what they're trying to do. So there's general attempts at practical stuff, but the huge reduction we can get there in death and serious injury as a result of that. As I mentioned before, then, like, we've got this gap which fascinates me. Like, this gap fascinates me for a number of reasons, because it's just like super complex as to why projects will not do things that safe system assessors recommend. And as I mentioned, I think we've got cultural issues. We've got an industry of people receiving these reports who don't have good fundamentals of safe system knowledge and understanding, and their desire is to pour concrete, and that's all they want to do. They just want to deliver, and that's part of their strength, is delivery. They just don't want to get stuff done and build it. They don't want to have to think about, is it the right thing to be building, and the like. They were just charged with the task of getting something built. So we've got that sort of stuff. We've got just traditional approaches to road design, which people are doing for a long time, and they're reluctant to change. And that's that's understandable. Humans don't like change. And you've got to look for all your tricks in change management to try to get people to alter from the way they've been doing things for the bulk of their career. So there's funding sometimes, although I do tell you that some of the safe system assessments we've done have actually saved projects money, where you get better safe system alignment and it costs less. So it's not always a cost thing, which is a bit of a myth around safe system treatments and creating safe system road environments, that it always costs more. It's like the Rolls Royce of roads. It's not, that's not the case. I mean, sometimes, yes, but there's certainly low cost ways for us to get exceptional alignment with safe system principles. It usually involves speed management, but that's, that's certainly appropriate in many of the situations. Anyway, so that's fascinating. And we're going to work on that through a whole lot of ways, building up industry knowledge, lobbying for more support and funding, getting politicians on board and the like. But the other one that I would imagine a lot of you are scratching your head over is, what's going on here? Didn't we just spend 5 modules or 4 modules talking about elimination of death and serious injury and how we can transform road networks to virtually eliminate death and serious injury? And we're talking about primary treatments, which are ones that are, virtually eliminating death and serious injury. Why on earth, after we've made all these recommendations, are we still seeing that residual of death and serious injury? Okay, and this is where that it surprised me when this evaluation report came in. Now, I was involved in some of these 35, wasn't involved in all of them, and there are a lot of, really good assessors out there doing these, and I was surprised. I thought that would be much, much lower. But when you dig into the, evaluation and understand, what you see are these residual of things that we do not know how to fix at the moment in the current operational framework that we find ourselves in. And what we've got here is motorcycle crashes. Okay, like the town, like the bypass, for example, a big town bypass. Okay, it's got it, the safe system assessment recommended this full containment with barrier systems and either grade separated intersections or these acceleration lanes. But the reality of the assessment technique said, well, at the 100 kilometers an hour or 110 kilometers an hour that bypass was going to be operating, motorcycle crashes with barrier systems, even if they have motorcycle underrun protection, there's death and serious injury. Okay, so they couldn't eliminate motorcycle crashes from that. Then they had also things like the high-end speeders, are really sort of people out there to really, give it hugely inappropriate use of the vehicle and the road network, and that continuing. And so our infrastructure that was being proposed wasn't actually alleviating the death and serious injury associated with that. Some other ones that fall out of the prediction model based on characteristics can be things like pedestrians walking on high-speed roads at night often. And that's one where it's really like you've built a road, you've categorized it as a priority traffic route. I'm going to go back to this bypass as an example. It's bypassed from the town. You wouldn't expect that, thus you're not creating the facilities for it. You've essentially said there's no exposure, but there's the occasional person who puts themselves at high risk by doing that for one reason or another. And so that's where you've got a whole lot of stuff down here that we really don't have good answers in the immediate for. We need to work on all sorts of things in here. We need better land use. We need to think outside of simple infrastructure solutions, and we need to think holistic societal changes. We need to think support for vulnerable communities. We need to think about enforcement. We need to think about vehicle technology and enhancing vehicle technology. This 20-year prediction took into account the vehicles of the future, but it also took into account the time it takes to roll over a fleet, which is fairly significant. And so that's a different challenge. We need a lot of work done in this by a lot of brilliant people across a lot of fields. And it's from research to change management, land use planning, strategic planning. societal improvements. So yeah, challenge. But anyway, that's see why I knew I would talk about this graph for so long, because it just tells me a story. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Sure do, Ken. So does safe system assessment consider the cost of changes versus the budgetary cost of any suggested changes? How do you convince? No. Okay. So follow up on that is how do you convince local authorities to adopt suggested changes? What is the extent of accountability of safe system auditors where serious injury or worse fatality occurs after those suggested changes were implemented?
Okay, so here's my disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer, seek legal advice, but here's my answer. The safe system assessment is an advice piece, and it remains an advice piece. It has no regulatory power. This is the same with a safe system audit. It has no regulatory power. The receiver of the report is not bound to do anything, right? And they have an obligation to do their sort of what they believe is best. Now, admittedly, they've seeked out professional advice on this, so it's going to be pretty compelling if it ever finds itself in court that is a reasonable thing to do. So in my 25 years working in road safety assessment techniques in one form or another, I have never seen a road safety auditor or safe system assessor held liable for recommendations they have made. Okay? So you're not going to recommend wild, completely unproven things. You're going to be thinking about things from a logical first principles perspective, or things that are documented or have been used in other places. If there's something, I can't even think about something absolutely just so out there wild that like, I don't know, tying a hot air balloon to the top of an intersection to provide warning of an intersection so you don't get a see-through effect. I'd say, okay, that's probably a little bit out there, and I can't see any safe system assessors recommending it. But if they did, I still think the road authority would be the one that would be held to account if they accepted that. Okay, so that's where it's an advice piece, and I wouldn't worry about the, any potential legal implications as long as you're making sort of sound recommendations. So that was that one. What was the first part of that one? I jumped straight to the legal one. Oh, you're on mute, Kathy.
How do you convince local authorities to adopt suggested changes?
Yeah, so that's so our role is to do the assessment and do the best assessment we can, and help them understand what we're suggesting, why we're suggesting it, and what the benefits could be. The reality is, like, it's on them if they want to take it on or they don't. Okay, we have other mechanisms to try to encourage better practice for local governments. This is one of them because it's a serious report. It gives clear recommendations. It puts some scores. So they are compelled to do things as a result of receiving this. So that's a real bonus out of safe system assessments or safe system audits now, and they're going to really further that by having the safe system assessment component built into the audit process. So we're going to see some movement on that, and remind me to come back to that, Kathy. But we're doing our job on this, okay, and we're going to try to help them, but they got to have that sort of will that they want to do it. And this is where we're seeing more work being done by some wonderful people, Waka Kotahi, supplemented by consultants and media comms people who are, getting safe system messaging out there, working with counsellors to try to bring them along on the journey and build up some knowledge there. So we see some support from others filtering in through these councils. And I'm realistic in the fact that, just because we put the report down that said, raise the intersection, slow vehicle speeds down to 30 kilometres an hour and the like, it may not get through if there's not political support for it, or if that organisation has a culture that's absolutely against, these lower speed limits, right? But they're going to start seeing it from these reports. They're going to start hearing it from Waka Kotahi. They're going to have funding held back if they're not doing these things. Their community hopefully will start to, demand that. We'll have some counsellors who get more educated on the benefits of these and start asking those questions. And that's how you start to move a society. One report put on their desk doesn't move the whole local government to immediately be safe system champions, but we start the ball rolling. We build an army of people who understand this, and then after the 10th meeting that stubborn design engineer has gone to, where every person is wanting that intersection raised and that 30 kilometres, they start to shift from firmly standing against it to starting to investigate how it can be done, and what ramp grades and how do I do the drainage and how, and then so it's less about refusing to do it, but more about the practical implications of how to do it. So yeah, it's a journey. What do you say? What's the old analogy, Kathy? The oil tanker, the big ship oil tanker, and it turns very slowly. It turns very slowly, and you don't even notice it turning when you're on it. But you got to have confidence. Okay, it's turning. We're moving the tide here. No, moving the tanker here, and we're getting to a better direction. Now,
I hear you, Ken. I think that's very inspirational, because I'm a bit of a just do it now and get really frustrated that it's not happening now. But you're right.
On the classic though,
moving the tanker.
The classic people, come back within that change management whole process is using the less years of experience doing something as dismissing people or downgrading their knowledge on a topic, right? So that's a real classic where we have safe system assessors recommending something like, I'm going to go with raised intersection because I've been talking about recommending a raised intersection, and the 30-year designer dismissing it and going, well, they don't know anything about actual road design or road management. That's not practical and it's not possible, and dismissed, right? And it's hard to sort of combat that, because they're often the trusted, person that everybody goes to in the council. But as we continue to build more and more of that, we get people building them and the world not sort of collapsing. And that's why I showed you pictures of them, that we can start to, again, shift those people. The one thing I wanted to say, though, was, why did Waka Kotahi insist on cramming safe system assessments at the start of every road safety audit to make this safe system audit? I mean, it feels weird in some degrees for those who are experienced road safety auditors, because it's kind of like, why do I need to go through this? I'm just looking for specific issues. One of the reasons, and there were quite a few, in fact, I've just written an article on that, which I'm going to publish online at some point. One of the reasons is this absolute upfront enforcement of the big picture. Like, a road safety auditor can be just so focused on the detail that they ignore the big picture. And like, take a high-speed signalised intersection, for example. You just see countless audits come in on these high-speed signalised intersections that have, 20 recommendations, 50 recommendations, and they're all around things like, the angle of the secondary signal aspect was 3 degrees off, is 3 degrees off, and the curb return has a slight, issue here, and the tactile ground surface indicators are slightly misaligned on this leg. All right, these are important things for us to check in the details of a project, and we've got to get all that right. Don't get me wrong, but they will completely ignore the fact that we have an intersection operating at 80 kilometers an hour and with just a red light to stop people going through and killing and seriously injuring everybody. So that happens with road safety audits. So, sometimes because of the nature of the auditors and the process, and they're into the details. But if you are forced to do this assessment technique before you jump into those details, you cannot ignore that. You're forced into the severity assessment of that crash when it happens. Not, I don't need to think about that because I'm going to stop all these crashes happening, which they won't do. You're forced into it. You get this vivid graph out of it, and then you're into the details. So yeah, it can really help not only for the receiver of that report, but also the actual safe system auditor themselves in terms of honing their vision or actually expanding their vision. So that's one real advantage. And there are going to be circumstances though where you feel it is ridiculous, like post-opening road safety audits. It's been built, it's there. Okay, the safe system assessment may come up with things that are very unlikely to ever be altered. But hey, maybe that's it. You just go. Somebody at some point will go, hang on a second, why have we spent $900 million on this upgrade and it gave us no better alignment with safe system principles? And that's probably a fair question to ask. Anyway.
Okay, good. And one more question or comment. This is a lot of, we're distancing ourselves from who it was. A former colleague of a former employer in Queensland apparently has been sued for road safety audit of temporary traffic management. So the employer stopped doing road safety audits.
Yeah, but give that person a prize, because when I said nobody had been sued in road safety audit, I discounted temporary traffic
Queensland
management.
Yeah.
No, yeah, Queensland.
Sorry.
You know the old saying, what holds Queensland together? Well, it's lots of red tape. So it keeps it together. It's because we were talking about assessing designs and road upgrades, that's what I was focused on from that original. Yeah, temporary traffic management is just a lawyer's dream, because they can find ridiculous things. Oh, well, the traffic cones were spaced at 1.5 meters when they should be 1 meter, so hence you're fully liable for this incident. It's like, well, that's ridiculous. But
okay, I'm going to stop you there, Ken, because you're probably going to say more things that will probably land us in hot water at some stage. So terms and conditions apply. Ken is not a lawyer. He's no legal stand. Okay. The follow-up comment is, I don't think it would happen in New Zealand. The ACC means it's nearly impossible to sue for personal injury.
Yeah, and so the bulk of the time I would say that is, and it is the envy of the world. And having a no-fault injury compensation mechanism is just incredible. Like that is where society has elevated up to of that genuine protection of its community. I mean, yeah, have a crash in the US with an uninsured driver and get a lifelong debilitating brain injury or have that to your family member and just see what comes out of that is just an absolute mess. So that's absolutely fantastic. The only downside I would say from it, from looking at these sort of schemes around the world, is you need a commission that has real teeth, and they will bite those who don't put in place mechanisms to protect where required. And utility providers under these schemes, I think, just get away with practices that are absolutely unacceptable from a safe system alignment perspective, and nobody is biting them. Whereas I think that in other jurisdictions without a ACC or ACC equivalent, they would be held further to account by insurance, private insurance companies going after them for practices of putting power poles close to the road, new power poles close to the road, and these sort of things. Okay, Kathy, I like this group a lot. I think we might have to redo all of this in person in freezing cold Queenstown, and we can chat these issues out in much more detail.
Sounds like you're trying to get yourself a holiday. That's work expense. But anyway, not to worry. Now we do need a break. Is now a good time for a break?
Well, I got one slide in, so good time for a break. No, I can be very quick on the next bits because we're just recapping a few things. Let's take 4 minutes and we'll get back into it. Lots of support for the skiing, I see. Okay, let's jump on now. I've listed here some of the benefits of safe system assessments as it's been rolled out across Australia and New Zealand. Just really good way to determine how proposals align with safe system principles, and that had been a bit of a gap, and it would be really opinion based, and now we have some sort of methodology to assess that, so that's good. Good to compare project design options. So road safety audits on their own were never intended, and it was actually told you shouldn't compare design options from that ranking or scoring perspective. Whereas integration of safe system assessments into the road safety audit process for a safe system audit is a really good way now to look at design options if you have more than one design option. Yep, obviously changes to the design to improve safe system alignment, good for planners, designers, project managers to move safe system from theory and that sort of strategic philosophical concept to an actual practical decisions on the ground and a sound basis for future planning, road design and infrastructure. Okay, so if it used to be that we were really focused here on safe system assessments of these early stages and road safety audits afterwards. But what the safe system audit process has done is it's really said, well, all of these should at all points consider these principles we've got. So just integrating them in there. And I don't need to go through this because this was talking about some of the differences and things we do well in audits and safe system assessments. But now we've combined the two in New Zealand. And it is a world first that sort of combining has happened. And so we're all sort of waiting with bated breath to see how it works out. I'm confident it will be a good thing and it'll work well. But the process that a safe system assessment would go through would be to determine the type of assessment, but that's already been covered in, sorry, the next slide I have the safe system audit process, but I wanted to take you through the safe system assessment process isolated because you can still do that as a standalone entity, or certainly if you work in other jurisdictions, you might be just doing safe system assessment. But there are sort of rapid or full safe system assessments done around Australia and used to be done in New Zealand. And they're close to each other. It's just that a rapid doesn't have some of those wider qualitative questions and a few other little bits and pieces. There's a selection of a team to do it. There's some sort of handover of information and some sort of commencement meeting and an understanding of the project, so everybody gets in the room together. There's site inspections done. The matrix is done, which you're into doing. Other elements of the safe system questions, so getting you widely thinking about road safety and things we could do. Treatments to improve safe system alignment are recommended. It's all reported up in a certain way. And then there's some sort of work done by the receiver of that report to decide what they will and what they won't be able to do. And then agreed things are implemented and changes are made to that design. So if we look at the safe system audit process, we can see there what is there. So the confirming of the stage of the audit, and so this is out of the newest Waka Kotahi guidance document, and you can get details around each of these 13 steps within there. But certainly that confirmation of the audit stage. So are we talking about a detailed design audit, or are we talking about a post-construction audit? Team selected, there's some sort of exchange of information again, commencement meeting, and then some reviewing of the documents out on site. Okay, so you can see these are mirroring the safe system assessment process, which was mirroring the road safety audit process anyway. So we're continuing to follow a process that a lot of people are very comfortable and familiar with. Debrief meetings, one which is just uniquely New Zealand, and I like it. And it's the idea that you would sit with your client and you would discuss what you found before you hand over a report, or even start writing the report. Really, you're talking about, okay, we've identified this with this and this, and they give some feedback, and you talk about it. Very collaborative approach. The report is written, it's handed over, the designer responds, they get some expert road safety input from a road safety engineer as well. Final decisions are made then, and the completed report with decisions all put together, and changes are implemented in the design or in the existing road environment, depending on what stage you're doing. So you can see that that process is very similar to what was always done. It's just that within especially that sort of assessment here, you're really doing a safe system assessment and a road safety audit combined. Any questions come in at this stage there, Kathy?
Can commencement meetings, is it critical, or what consists of a commencement meeting?
Yeah, so that is a fair question, because it's always put into road safety audit or safe system assessment guides or safe system audit guides, this distinct thing called a commencement meeting. And the reality is it's not done as a sit down formalized meeting very often. Okay, the ones over my career that really have had proper commencement meetings have been pretty big dollar value projects. But the bulk of the time it's done through emails, a phone call, and just check you've got everything you need. I mean, it's all about ensuring that the assessors have what they need to do their job, that they understand the scope of the project. Okay, if that can be done through that, or the everybody's clear on all of that, then yeah, it doesn't actually happen as a distinct meeting. Anything else?
And yes, we have a comment about the culture in New Zealand, I think, is still more reactive audit than proactive assessment, which I believe is more costly as it's not trying to do it right the first time.
Yeah, it's a problem we face across the world often is that, proactive versus reactive, and reactive is how a lot of things are instigated. I think that's where our development of policy, of process helps. I think, again, I'll come to Waka Kotahi, who have integrated, the requirements for safe system audits as part of funding or as part of business cases and the like. And local governments can more go down that track. I think there's great opportunity there for a local government to set a council policy that says that we will do safe system audits for projects above 500,000 or above 200,000 that interface with the road network or path network, and that then at least gives you something to go to and say, well, it has to be done. It's a process. We don't have a choice of just waiting and addressing the ones where we've had catastrophes occur, but it's actually built into our process. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, the point I think is a reasonable one.
A question around independence. So road safety audit had to be done by an independent. If the audit is combined with safe system assessment, does it need to be done by an independent party, or can it be done by the designer?
Yeah, it under the new safe system audit process in New Zealand, the independence is now required for the whole process. So if you as a designer wanted to do a safe system audit yourself, you could, but you can't do the safe system audit. Sorry, as a designer, you can do a safe system assessment. Do that, get an idea of all of that. But a safe system audit will have to be done by an independent, and they're going to sort of repeat the safe system assessment anyway. Yeah. So it's going to make it a little bit more challenging, probably a little bit more costly for some local governments and the like. But remember, though, if you're in a local government, independence is not defined as they have to not be council people. It's simply defined as that there is, clarity that they are not involved in the design and they don't have a potential conflict of interest associated with that project. It's a little murkier when you're into consultancy world and having the Wellington office do the safe system audit for the designs from the Christchurch office. That's a bit murky, but certainly at a local government level, it's generally well accepted. And this was well documented in the Australia's Guide to Road Safety Part 6, that you can have a local government and then a different area of the local government area be the sort of safe system audit team or the like.
Thanks, Ken. Question or a comment? You will remember this question from Road Safety Audit. The client for developers is different to the eventual asset owner. A developer will make different decisions on works than a local authority.
Yep. It is the end asset manager is the one with responsibility for what happens. That, like, the end of story. Like, if you are managing a network and a developer is doing the design and the and commissioning the safe system audit, there must be the end asset manager has to be the one that signs all of that off. Sure, the developer can find their own audit team, they can get the audit done, they can respond to all of these findings, but that has to go through the end asset manager for agreement and sign off. And as an asset manager, and when I say asset manager, I'm talking about like a council or the like, you have to look at that, and you are welcome, and you can say, I disagree with the audit, I disagree with the responses to that audit, and you can absolutely do that. And you may, in some circumstances, and I certainly did this a number of times in my career, commission your own. Say, we disagree with this, we don't believe it's accurately reflected the risk, and we're going to commission our own.
Fair enough. What if safe system assessment has been done by the designers already? Do you need to do your own safe system assessment as part of the audit?
Well, you could take that one and put it in as long as you agree with everything that's in there. I mean, you would, if there's things you want to add, so you'd have to go through a process yourself. You can't simply just use that. Otherwise, it's not independent. But yeah, you might be able to use a lot of that.
Okay. The standard report template is not good for a road safety audit for a developer.
Yeah, okay. I'd be interested in what aspects are not good in it. And so is that's the new one? I mean, we've got findings, and we've got areas for findings, we've got areas for recommendations. So from that simplistic point of view, it should be okay. But yeah, I think there's always room for improvement, and you're trying to use one tool to for a whole series of things.
A comment here. Oh, okay. So follow up to that is the developer considers themselves to be the client, a client in capitals, and they want to make the client decisions.
Yeah, okay. No, they're the designer, essentially. They're not clients.
Yeah, so it looks like there is
In fact,
some confusion around, who's the client.
Well, that's actually when we were updating the Australian Guide to Road Safety Part 6, we didn't use the term client, we used the term sponsor to try to avoid that, avoid any confusion there. Maybe we created other confusion by doing that. But don't get me wrong, the end, if some big new development is happening and it's interfacing with the public road network, if it's private land, or it's going to become public land, there is no getting away from the fact that the local government or Waka Kotahi is going to be the one that signs off on final decision making associated with that infrastructure. Yeah.
Okay.
I see Paul's point. I saw it came in, and but the reality is the way that should be thought about is that them and their designer are the designers. Anyway.
There is an email address to give this sort of feedback to. I'll dig that out as well. I'm not sure, but especially with regards to the new template, new process, and that sort of thing, this sort of feedback should be fed back to Waka Kotahi to help make improvements for the next version.
Yep. So Jeanette's articulately put it in there. The client should be whoever will eventually own and operate the road, e.g. the road controlling authority. That's right. That has to be the end client as such.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Can I no, we get run out of time, and I think we're all on the same page, and I think it's just a bit of terminology, and maybe, as you say, Kathy, like a bit of feedback to what he as they do some updates. And there's a number of things in that document I think people are providing some feedback on that could be improved a bit. I think the overall process is good, and yeah. Okay. So New Zealand does not have a register of road safety auditors or safe system assessors, but because you have successfully completed a course that is recognised by a whole lot of jurisdictions around Australia and New Zealand, if you wanted to get yourself formally registered as a safe system assessor, you could do that through the Victorian government here. So that's an option. So New Zealanders are on there. If you need oh no, actually this one you won't. I was going to say, if you need an Australian address, we can use ours, but for safe system assessors, you don't. That's for road safety auditors. So it's in the safe system engineering site, and they talk about a register of recommended safe system assessors. The extra little things you need to do apart from this course, which is in there, is to submit a safe system assessment for their review, and then if they believe you have the required skills, you are then added to this list. And the list is just a big list of names and contact details of people. An example here is that you can talk about requirements in terms of dollar figures. That is one way to think about risk of a project or potential of a project to contribute to reduction in death and serious injury, and then have requirements for safe system audits associated with that. So that's one option. I won't go through that in detail. And in here, I've also put in this full and rapid safe system assessment for your reference. It's not used as a defined thing in New Zealand, even with just normal safe system assessments. The safe system audit process is essentially a rapid safe system assessment followed by a road safety audit. Okay, I'll pause there, Kathy, and I'll see if we've got anything, and then we'll spend a little bit of time just jumping through some road environments, and then hopefully give people 10 minutes back to finish off any quizzes that are outstanding and start to really press forward with their final assignment.
Promises, Ken. No, just some commentary about whether New Zealand's going to have a register or not. And I've answered that in the chat, which is not at the moment. They don't have one, but they're looking at doing it. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it's such a dilemma because, yeah, it's administratively challenging, but and what value does it get? Well, it can have value, but it can have downsides as well. And people are on the register and then they're not performing great, but then they're very angry if you take them off. And yeah, anyway. Okay, safe system road environments. Well, I think with this group, we've done a lot of this thinking already about, you know, what does a road environment look that has high alignment with safe system principles? We had those lovely movement in place, one network framework, thinking style cartoons that we discussed. And this is sort of similar to that. But the reason I want to do this is you come out of this course with a proof that you understand the process of safe system assessment. And you've looked at a few road environments, or you've done an in-depth look at one of them, which is you're looking at an intersection now, and you'll be doing that. But there's nothing on this safe system assessment certificate that says, well, you can only do urban intersections or the like. No, you're going to hopefully be out there doing assessments across all sorts of road environments. So I just wanted to touch on those and talk a little bit about things that are, you know, align highly with safe system principles, and how we, with our current knowledge, can transform these sorts of areas into higher alignment with safe system principles. So I'll go through the sort of residential strip shopping centre areas, mixed use arterials, low and high volume rural roads, suburban arterial style roads, and different urban freeways or motorways and rural highways. Well, maybe I'll just get some input from the audience because you're all so good. Well, you know, these sorts of road environments, which 50 km/h, urban street, what are we thinking we could alter here that would align much higher with safe system principles? Type a few into the chat. Okay. Lots of good thinking in there. Lots of good stuff. I won't talk to all of them, but I mean, the immediate look at what speeds things are operating, I think is a very logical thing. We talked about this in our session around moving in place one network framework in these residential environments through, you know, keeping the speed up of vehicles as through traffic is not a priority. And we can certainly blanket down speeds, and that should happen in our residential environments. There's no need for high speeds. And associated with that, anything that is being proposed to sort of open sight lines by removing parking or the like can often come with increased speed of vehicles because of wider areas, wider carriageways and the like. So if you're looking to do anything like that, make sure you supplement with local area traffic management or utilize that area for some wonderful features like separated bike facilities or increasing the footpath areas or the like. Yeah, certainly I love the idea of raised thresholds and even questioning whether access is actually required, and can we start to limit our access, which you know, adjust the exposure there, which can be highly beneficial for our alignment with safe system principles. Yeah, so I mean, really good points in there. So thank you. Let's jump on to our next one here, and we won't do this one as a group. I'll just talk to it briefly, but you know, this is in Bondi Junction, for those who know it, in New South Wales, in Sydney area, and you know, fascinating area from that movement and place perspective. It's such a place for people, yet it was operating at a 40 kilometre speed limit through the area. Now, you know, there was a day when 40 kilometres was considered a very low speed limit, and this is just sort of that hangover of that. Obviously, people recognised it was lots of pedestrians in the area, but we're sort of evolved from that, of these areas where that is not it's not that well aligned in terms of human tolerance to physical force at a 40 km/h incident, and that we understand that we are having so much vitality of an area like this through the ability for pedestrians to permeate, to walk around, to hang out, to trade, to have a drink, to be out there, that we are looking to reform these areas into genuine places for people, and in doing that, it will come at the cost of any speed for vehicles. But that's what we have absolutely agreed to under the One Network framework. And you know, it's interesting with this, and if I ask people about what we could do to improve alignment with safe system principles here, people will often talk about, you know, using these bollards and creating sort of fences to stop all these people crossing willy-nilly. And that's one where I go, well, that's even if that did improve safety, which it's questionable. I think people would just walk on the road and like, it's just such a degrading of the place. Right? It's so massively says, this is a road for cars, and you pedestrians stick to your little areas and don't travel where you want and how you want. So I just reinforce that importance of thinking about the area from that one network frame of movement and place thinking before jumping into solutions to get better alignment with safe system principles. Prize, if anyone can tell me where this is? No. Nobody. Oh, good guess. Sean's on it. City of the future, Hamilton. It is, yep, sort of on the entry to the CBD there. And these sorts of mixed-use arterials is where we will start to see, again, some transformation and more recognition of that movement in these areas is not just about pumping vehicles through there as fast as we possibly can, and that recognition that we can utilize large swathes of areas for dedicated bike facilities, protected bike facilities, public transport facilities, and slowing vehicles in these areas where there's not that need to have, I mean, the difference between traveling through there at 65 versus your 40s maybe, or even 30s is not so significant, because we're not talking about a 20-kilometre journey. It's a small section where we have building up of vulnerable road users and more push for vulnerable road users. Certainly, I think utilising signalised intersections as points to do local area traffic management. I say local area traffic management, I mean raised intersections. Why is that good? Because you're addressing a point where we know there's higher turbulence, higher conflict, higher chance of crash, and we slow vehicles. And it also disrupts that straight, flat run where people have the ability then to use it as a bit of a racetrack at night and the like. So you're breaking up that that straight long run. Mixed use arterial. Low volume rural roads are going to be a huge challenge as we embark on a transformation of the network. The New Zealand speed management guidelines are addressing this in one meaningful way, and it's quite progressive to talk about the fact that a lot of these roads without the volume to warrant the investment in infrastructure upgrades are going to have their speeds lowered. And that's really what we can do to try to significantly reduce the chance of a crash. The severity of the crash, it's challenging. We will reduce the severity a little bit, but we're talking 100 to 80. They're very, very severe in either case. So we still have a bit of work to do there, but we can enhance more likelihood reduction through sealed shoulders, enhanced line marking, guidepost spacings, activated warning of side roads through REORs and the like, and a number of different facilities in there. But then when we get to the higher volume rural roads, your state highway ones and the like, and other major state highways is where we see the infrastructure improvements happening, and we will be looking to invest in complete separation, continuous barrier systems down the middle of the road and the outside of the road to reduce the severity of any crash from happening, and providing those facilities at the intersections to create U-turn opportunities, turn opportunities, but also lower speeds and angles. So if you had a state highway and you've managed to put a barrier down the middle, you can utilize an intersection with perhaps a compact roundabout or something, so you can collect side roads, minor side roads and access points, bring them down here to U-turn to go back. And you've also made high alignment with the intersection. You've made high alignment with safe system principles throughout the road. Obviously, the spacing of that can be a challenge, and thinking about how far you're willing to push people out of their way to go the other direction. But certainly at a fundamental safe system perspective, that's how you take a route and you transform it to high alignment with safe system principles. And what I'd encourage anybody to do who's thinking about safety upgrades to a whole route is think about it over time and in a reasonable period of time of upgrade, like 30 years or something. And you can sort of really start to say, okay, I've got this big long road and I've got these intersections and access points and the like, and maybe it's got a, goes windy or something. You can really start to segment it up and understand, okay, we say, well, for this section, we're going to put wire rope barrier down the middle of the road over the first thing, but then to do that, then we create a roundabout here. So we've got that U-turn opportunity for people who are accessing it from their land here and go back. So then that roundabout's going to go in. We know this is a dangerous intersection, so we're going to put a roundabout there at this point, which then leads us to say, well, actually then central barrier system in that section is an early win and an early adoption we can do. And you can start to build up a pipeline of work, which is the best bang for the buck, considering access as well as safe system alignment. High volume outer arterial roads, the traffic sewers, as some people call them. The reality is that we will retain roads that have traffic priority, and that's what it is. Okay. We cannot try to then take these and pretend that vulnerable road users can interact with these high-speed vehicles in some sort of safe manner with just a bike lane, something like that. That's unacceptable. It is low alignment with safe system principles. So if we're going to have high-speed vehicles, full separation of vulnerable road users is required, and any at-grade locations need to be brought down in speed and energy into within tolerable levels. And so raised intersections, signalised roundabouts, or grade separations for vehicles, separated facilities for pedestrians and cyclists. And I'll take questions after I just cover off these last two very briefly. Motorways have high alignment with safe system principles due to full separation usually. They have no intersections at grade, or when the on-ramps come in, the angles and speed differentials are good. The volume of traffic is high. So the use of managed motorways sort of is the last alignment with safe system principles area that we are really enhancing. And that's really, so like a managed motorway has, your lane use management systems. It has freeway entry, ramp signals and the like. And you're able to, through analysis of operations and incident detection, be able to manage speeds of vehicles on the approach to lessen the likelihood and severity of crashes. And it works for some of the problematic things like pedestrians that have found themselves on the motorway or got out of taxis at 2 in and are wandering on the motorway, where you can actively reduce the likelihood and severity of crashes through bringing vehicle speeds down, providing warning and the like. And lastly, the biggest major rural highways, these are more, yes, your state highway between major centres and those sort of things is just continuous barrier systems. I mean, there's no point even creating these big wide medians anymore, unless you plan to, build lanes into it in the future. But simply barrier systems down the middle with appropriate offset, barrier systems on the outside and grade separated interchange. If there are any at-grade intersections, yeah, the choice is grade separation. So that's the elimination of the exposure to crashes. Application of something that reduces speeds and angles, such as a roundabout, or if it must remain or you can't afford that, the real at-grade option that has high alignment with safe systems principles is essentially large acceleration lane. So your delta V, your change in speed, is reasonable, blocking off the center and having them then U-turn, have an acceleration lane back and enter, and then either go that way or through. So you're basically working on the principle of change in vehicle speed at interaction point is within tolerable levels, but obviously think about your roadsides in those situations. Kathy. Questions? I raced a little bit there. I think, especially with this group, that's okay. I think there's a really good feel for things.
Absolutely, Ken. So there was a question in there about better guidance for compact roundabouts. Is Austroads doing anything? And I've got the Victorian, I guess, road design note here in module 2. So that's a resource. But have we got anything else on compact roundabouts that you know of?
I'm just racking my brain to think if Austroads is doing anything in that space. I would look at that 0403, which we wrote with the Victorian government, and it provides some pretty good guidance and some examples. And I can send the detailed designs for the Lance Creek one, to anybody who is grappling with that. I can't think of Austroads has done anything in particular.
There was an earlier question as well about, I missed this one. Can New Zealand safe system auditors apply accreditation as assessors in Australia and be recognised here in New Zealand? That's a very good question.
Say it again. Can New Zealanders?
Can New Zealanders who've completed, so this is the safe system assessment course, but can the people who've completed the road safety audit course apply for accreditation in Australia on an Australian register?
Yes. Yes, you can absolutely. You can apply on, if you've done our road safety audit course, you can apply in Victoria, New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, and get on any of those registers as a New Zealander. And then I think the second part was, and would it be recognised in New Zealand? Well, there's no requirement to be on a register in New Zealand. You just need to, at each instance of being engaged as an auditor, there's a requirement for whoever's engaging you to be confident that you know what you're doing. It would look nice on the CV. You can say, I'm a registered senior road safety auditor or road safety auditor in all of these places. Accredited.
Ken might pay for you to come over and do an audit in sunny Melbourne. Is that what you're saying? The working holidays are reciprocal. I have popped in module 5. There is, some of you may or may not have seen it. There was a webinar run recently by the College of Road Safety, and it was about, I guess, the changes to safe system auditing in, I can't remember when it was. Oh, it was 6 months ago, maybe even longer. Time flies when you're having fun. But anyway, if you wanted to have a look at that, I think Ken features in that one. Don't you, Ken?
Yeah. Well, myself and Sam Paisley and Sam Hughes, I think. Jess, right, Ray?
Yeah.
Lots of fun.
Okay, so just a quick reminder to take you back. You are completing your safe system assessment. Many of you are already well on your way. You've had a look at your design. You've spent 2.5 hours out there. Don't have to do that and go to that great extent, but you've got your site here. It is due basically next Thursday, and we will start marking them, just after the due date. We give ourselves a week for marking time. So do get it in by next Thursday. If you need an extension, if something happens, please do get in touch and let me know. But otherwise, just upload your submission there. Make sure you've got a selfie of yourself on site, not just a lounge room type selfie. Get it on site, and if you need a hand with anything, we can set up a one-on-one sort of Teams call to run through anything that you might be unsure about. So that is what you need to do to complete the course. The other things that you need to make sure you've done throughout is all of the quizzes. So there is a quiz for today's session. There it is there, Module 5 quiz. And once you've done all your quizzes and your assessments have been submitted and have been marked, the last thing that you will need to do is complete the course feedback. So a very short multiple choice style question just to give us some feedback on the program. And then your SSA certificate here will no longer say restricted. See, it's restricted at the moment for all these different reasons. But once everything has been done and marked and achieved the passing grade, then you'll be able to download your certificate from there. I'll also be sending your certificates, a hard copy in the mail, along with any prizes that you've won throughout the program, and that will arrive at some point in time in the future. I think that's it. Do we have any questions, I guess? Any questions that I've missed? Getting clapping. Okay. Sunny Melbourne, we need a truck to deliver the prizes, quite possibly. Oh, so do I get to go to New Zealand to deliver the prizes? I think. Is that right? That's how we're doing it?
Travel request denied again.
What are the main differences between, safe system assessment and safe system audit courses? Or maybe road safety audit courses?
Yeah. Well, so because Wakatahi pulled them together, so we are, it's going to be one course is the answer. There are quite a series of differences, but there's quite a lot of overlap. So those two are coming together as one into the future.
So that's a good point, Ken, that from some people have expressed interest in doing the training, but from the next round, basically it will be a safe system audit course and will cover both the auditing and the safe system assessment in the same program. So if you have been to this training or audit training in the last, you've been to this one just now, but in the last 3 years or so, it's not recommended that you come to the safe system audit course. Okay. Yeah.
If you've got specific interest in any of that, get in contact with Kathy and myself even, and we'll navigate you through how to sort of get yourself up to speed. We do have options of other road safety audit courses around Australia, which you could supplement if there were some specific things. But well, wonderful group, Kathy. Very much enjoyed it. Thank you very much. It works well, and certainly we're spending a good bit of time in New Zealand this year. So looking forward to catching up with many of you in person, no doubt, and maybe getting out there and doing some assessments and audits with some of you, or at least having a coffee or a beer and having a chat about how we can continue to improve road safety.
And just ski down the slopes. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. It has been an incredible group, and Ken's not just saying that, and I'm not just saying that. Really love everyone's participation and commentary on the chat and getting involved, asking lots of questions, and it's been terrific. Thank you, Ken, for all of your guidance and knowledge and experience and your wonderful inspiration and making us all do better things.
Thank you, Kathy, for organising everything behind the scenes. Incredible amount of work to get these things up and running and make sure everybody knows everything they need, and hand delivering all of those parcels and everything that you do. And yeah, thanks to everybody. I know everybody's so busy, and to take time out of your schedule to do this is, I think it's really important. It really is important, because we don't get change and we don't get improvement, and we don't get to protect our community by just doing what we have always done, and there's a need to change and to push. And it's not easy sometimes, but gathering a skill set that you can use is a real step in the right direction. So congratulations. Thank you. And we will hopefully see you at a course in the future.
Beautiful. Thanks, everyone. Bye.